This is the True Speaks Network. I'm I'm the host Dylan. I'm joined by Stu Webb. Are you with us?
I am, and I want to thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. And I'm also joined by James Impending.
It is always a pleasure to be here with you, Dylan. Always.
Always good to have you. We always have fun.
Absolutely.
Dylan, I asked you, are you the youngest broadcaster in America?
No, I know one who's younger than me.
Well, the implication of the listeners. How old are you, Dylan?
I am 15 years old.
I got questions for you. Since I also do a show, and I know that Jim does, what got you involved?
Well, I woke up because of the Edward Snowden case back last year, but in terms of radio, I really don't know how I started doing radio. It kind of just happened, I feel like. I was good friends with James for a while, and we just started doing shows, and it's worked out so far. We've gotten a lot of good info out there. We've gotten a lot of good guests, so it started to work out now.
Are you waking up a lot of people your own age?
There's a huge disconnect with me and other kids. I'm not. Most people don't. Most kids my age don't listen to me.
It sounds like they ought to be, according to what Ed Opperman says about you.
Well, yeah, I had a fun show with Ed actually. That was a good show too.
Ed's always fun to do a show with.
Yeah, he is. Stu, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm a federal whistleblower of 30 years, one of the few that have survived that long. I've had numerous attempts upon my life. I think I'm up to about 35 attempts on my life. The latest ones were in the past 3.5 years, 3 car crashes in 1 year. It was all hits. And I say hits. One was government stooges, they're all shadow government stooges, but the first one was a rollover where they rolled me over 3 times on my head on a concrete barrier at 65 miles an hour, hit me in the left rear, spun me, and I went straight, hit exactly where I was sitting on my head, and saw the windshield hitting the concrete barrier, and that's the last I remember. I put myself in. Couldn't control it. They grabbed me in the rear end less than a year later, to date, matter of fact. And then 8 days after that, they Jackson Stevens' son, Little Rock, Arkansas, people may know that name, money launders for the Clintons and my ex-in-law, Leonard Melvin, and he was all tied up with BCCI and all that stuff. Well, his son decided he was going to take a contract to pick me off at 60 miles an hour. Hit me twice on the left side on another van I had, destroyed it, but he only moved me 1 lane and didn't knock me into the pillar they intended me to hit. So, and they burned a customer's house to the ground that was empty. I'm a contractor, a builder I was working on in Prairie Village, Kansas. That was $160,000 went down the tubes, and so these are the things that have happened to me, and the reason is I married into the Bush Crime Center. I married one of the Illuminati 12's daughters, and I did not know that he was an Illuminati. I didn't know anything about him. Had him one time, that was it, and married her, and she said that they didn't want anything to do with us because she married a non-Jew, a Gentile, and that was her excuse. But she lied to me from the beginning, and I didn't know any of these things, but we ended up having a child, and before we had our daughter, she was diagnosed as a child abuse now adult syndrome. And I had to take her to 3 shrinks because she chased me through the house with a gun once. She got violent in the last year of the marriage. And she got violent in the last of the marriage of 4 other marriages. The first one, she threw knives at him. She chased me through the house with a gun, batted a 3rd one up, an MD she married, a baseball bat in the head. Everybody took her to shrinks, couldn't get her even to go back the same ones. Well, when our daughter was born, 28 days later, she tried to murder my daughter by trying to hit her in the head with an ashtray. And so I called the police, and they told me, it's the end of your marriage. I said, yeah. and had a female cop there who, in Carrollton, Texas, convinced me that there was an alternative route to keep from destroying the marriage because we had a newborn infant. Child welfare would order her to undergo psychiatric evaluation if she agreed to keep from being arrested for assault and battery on me and attempted murder on my daughter. She agreed to do that. Next day she disappears, and her father bought her way out of everything. And they terminated my parental rights after they threatened to kill my attorney less than a year later, and terminated my parental rights, and that was about 29 some odd years ago. So I got mad, couldn't do anything, so I started digging on Grapple. And I went to the FBI, and this is 1984 and 85. Went to the FBI in 86 after moving out of Dallas, moved back to Kansas City where I thought it was normal human beings that can't bribe judges. And next thing I know, I'm being arrested every time I turn around for traffic tickets. And it was because my ex-in-law's partner, Daddy Bush, was at the time vice president, then became president. And the more I dug on him, what ended up happening was that I found out he owned Silverado, where Neil Bush, the president's son, was the director, and that they were money laundering from Iran-Contra, $12 trillion in 9 years of narcotics money, that they were stealing from the FDIC and through fraudulent loans, and that this was the CIA bank, I came to find out. Well, I caused the congressional hearing in 1990 or 91 on that. There were 4 of them back-to-back between 89 and 1991. One was the Denver airport scandal, which was they owned all the land tracts and overinflated the land, jumped it up 5 times in price in about 2 years. I keep selling it to another corporation at double and double and double. And then the construction fraud on the airport and the secret underground base that they built underneath the airport. And all that. I was working with the Rear Admiral, Gene Young, on that, and he testified in hearings. I kept telling him I don't want to come testify in the hearings, so he testified. Other people testified at first it was the HUD hearings, where they had robbed HUD for 500,000 apartment units, the largest landlord in the nation, and they had 8 out of the undersecretaries, out of the 13 undersecretaries, they had 8 of them. They were stealing 9 out of every $10 out of HUD, Housing and Urban Development, which is the largest budget of our government, by the way. And then it became Silverado, then it became the Denver Airport, then it became what they called the Keating Five, but it was actually MDC Holdings, the parent company of Silverado. It was their parent company that was doing illegal political campaign money laundering. And back then, you could get the media to do things. Well, I had the media cranked up on it. Matter of fact, Jonathan Beatty, the actor Warren Beatty's brother, wrote a book called The Outlaw Bank, BCCI, but he was the one that wrote the story for me on the Denver airport's illegal political campaign money laundering and MDC. And later it became known as the Keating Five, with drug lord John McCain involved. And it turns out to be that they made me a political prisoner. First they tried to kill me, blowing out 2 tires. Then it turned around and they call you back, Gene. I have to on radio. One of your favorite guys, Gene Chip Tatum, Mr. James, in Impending Radio.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, then it turned out to be that they made me a political prisoner for 10.5 months. They issued a warrant for my arrest, and I wasn't going to get killed. I was told to go hide for a while. I did. I hid from the FBI for a year and did 70 radio shows on nationwide broadcasts with 350 radio network when they were big back then before they bought them up. And I had a lot of noise going, and they had to shut it down. So when I got out, I went after them, started exposing them heavily, trying to get a grand jury. Even made a grand jury demand just prior to the Oklahoma City building being blown up, and then I found out they were involved in that. And then I found out, of course, they were still bleeding the American people dry through all their fraud with HUD and all this other, and nobody would do anything anymore because they had bought up the media. They had control of Congress and Senate. They are APEC. They did 9/11. They're the Israelis in America. That was my ex-in-law, Leonard Millman. And they were
Absolutely
behind the creation of artificial mortgages, $100 trillion. It turned out to be a $5,000 trillion derivative fraud. And they have stolen 12.5, pushing 13 million houses from people who are legitimately paying their houses. Or widows, as an example, that I did on one of my recent stories, how they stole her house after it had been paid off by the insurance when her husband died, young widow. And turned around and collected the insurance money and stole the house back. So it's bizarre what I found. But to give you an idea, you know, I'm an author on Veterans Today. We're now #1 media in the country in less than a year and a half, and I've been there. We took it to that point. We've got some of the top people there. We have intelligence officers. We have information that comes from the CIA, the FBI, U.S. military intelligence, ATF, you name it, and many of our writers up there. We even have one that's a Mossad agent that can't stand these AIPAC Israelis that have done all this to us. And my ex-in-law is like, he took over for Meyer Lansky, I have come to discover. He was the mob don back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, the Jewish mob here in America. Leonard Millman took it over. Now, I might add, he's faked his death. He ran off to Cuba because Carol Lam, the fired prosecutor, had indicted him on kidnapping charges related to my daughter. And they sealed it under national security, but he thought he was going to get popped because in 1997, he had to pay an $80 million fine for bribing government officials, FBI agents, U.S. attorneys, and everybody else. He never went to jail. So here I am 30 years later. I don't have a relationship with my own daughter, grandson, because I got a lifetime restraining order on me, where they illegally did a second divorce in 1994 in Denver that I didn't even participate in. And they said I took $1.5 million to give up my daughter for life under a sealed case with the agreement of a lifetime restraining order that I can never open up the case. Well, that's fraud on the court, and that's obstruction of justice and everything else. But, you know, I've been threatened with arrest if I were to attempt to even get around her. And I had an FBI agent in 2002 that told me about the second divorce that I never even knew it occurred, because he said, you got a lifetime restraining order on you. When she turned 18, I said, no, I don't. So that's where Carol Lam stepped in, because I gave her the Jack Abramoff stuff that helped put Abramoff in jail, who was the big lobbyist bribing everybody up there, and he was working for my ex-in-laws, Leonard Millman and his partner, Larry Mizell. So Millman faked his death. He's in Cuba. I think if people were to go to the front of my website, and if they were to read where it says top videos on the right column, you'll see one with Gordon Duff, who is intelligence. And there's a 3-hour marathon we did explaining about things about Leonard Millman, confirming it. And about a year and a half ago, we decided to come public with me and decided that it was time for me to come on to Veterans Today with him. And he talks about
can I ask you a question?
Mitt Romney delivering drug money from the Afghan drug heroin that's coming into our country. Mitt Romney, when his presidential candidate, was stepping off of a plane with the KGB's daughter, his mistress, holding her hand, and he was going to deliver his Bain Capital, $3.2 trillion of drug money, to my ex-in-law, who's faked his death and hiding out. But you had a question. That's my story.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You said that they said that you took $1.5 million to never see your daughter again. And just for the listeners, now I know for a fact that you never received a penny of that money, but just for the listeners, would you tell them that you never received a penny of that money?
I've never received a penny of that money, and I wouldn't trade my daughter for $1.5 million. And what's interesting is, in 1997, they came along and they were trying to offer me the extension of what they call an olive branch. And they were saying, oh, we'll give you $7 million through this attorney, Norman Brownstein. And it came through a senator, a U.S. senator first. Then it came through a former Denver prosecutor who wanted to meet with me at the Cherry Creek Workout Center in Cherry Creek in Denver, south there, a real expensive place, to have lunch and cocktails. And that he had a briefcase for me, and it would contain $500,000 in cash and it would contain what do they call them? I'm brain dead, but it's insurance, like bonds.
Like a gag order?
No, it's bond. It's annuities, insurance that would come due, payable and due every year. So I was to collect $500,000 each year, and was going to be a payoff to $7 million to go away and shut up and forget about my daughter. So they did that to try to entice me to legitimize the original illegal lifetime restraining order. And of course, I told him to go to hell and back.
Absolutely right, sir. That's no amount of money, and I'm a father of 5 myself. There's not an amount of money in the world that could make me want to leave my children.
I wouldn't trade my daughter for any amount, even $5 billion, $10 billion bucks. I wouldn't do it in a heartbeat. I don't have a relationship with her. If I never have one, that's okay at this point. I know at this point what's going to happen to the grandfather and the Bushes and the rest. They're going down.
Yes, sir. You're absolutely right. They are. You can only hide in the shadows for so long before somebody turns the light on and sees what you're doing. And that's what you've been doing for the last 30-plus years is turning lights on everywhere these people hide. And for that, sir, I commend you.
Well, thank you. And I've been trying to do my best. Now I got a lot of help. And it seems that the government, a lot of people that sat in the background in the past from intelligence and different agencies have now decided that their kids and their grandkids and everybody and they themselves are affected, and there's no future for anyone because these people own, in 1981, they owned 20% of the U.S. economy, 12 men, 1% they called it, and now that 1% is control of approximately 97 to 98% of the economy. General Accounting Office in June of 2012 said they were in control of 95% of the economy. There's no way 12 men can do that. And they were saying that 14 men, the 1%, 400 men, the 1%, make more money per year, 400 men do, than half the entire population of 330 million people each year. That's out of control.
Oh,
They've
there was
taken over Europe and everything, and it's been through all this fraud with these fake mortgages and these fake derivatives where they've just stolen everybody's pension funds, and which caused bank bailout. And I helped push them to bank bailout, not bank bailout, but over Bear Stearns, working with Interpol and other agencies, French intelligence, because they ripped them off. We thought we were going to bury them, and they'd have to go to bankruptcy court, and it'd all come out and be put in prison. But no, George W. Bush and their partner in crime bailed them out. I might add that Leonard Millman, my ex-in-law's partners, were Bill and Hillary Clinton, George Herbert Walker Bush, Neil Bush, Jeb Bush, Marvin Bush, George W. Bush, Ollie North, and a whole canopy of other criminals.
Hey, Stu, real quick, just your opinion on this, the so-called 2016 election. Do you really now? See, I have a theory that Hillary Clinton, she's taking in all this money. People are backing her already, but yet she still hasn't decided to run for presidency yet. Do you think that Jeb Bush is going to be her counterpart?
Well, I think here's the lineup they think is going to happen. One will be Hillary Clinton, and two will be Jeb Bush versus each other. But I got news for you that by that time, both of them will probably be standing trial and be ready to be executed.
Hey, James, can you move away from your mic? It's coming in too loud.
Okay, I'm sorry, brother.
No problem.
So, if they had their way, yes, and if they could stop what's going on against them, then you would see Jeb Bush versus Hillary Clinton. You'd see two killers versus each other. Hillary Clinton's a fourth-degree witch. She's a mass murderer. She's murdered a lot of people. She's a known lesbian versus a known killer, drug smuggler. They're both drug smugglers. She was heavily money laundering from Iran-Contra into a company called M&L Business Machines in Denver, Colorado, cut out for MDC and my ex-in-laws. she's bad news. Jeb Bush is super bad news. So either way, they're New World Order pigs. There's an Illuminati, and the 12 Illuminati that is, and I'll name them. They're in control. They're devil worshippers. One's Leonard Millman, my ex-in-law. The other is Larry Mizell, the bank bailout scamster.
Yes, sir.
Read about them. I have my internet site, and I have my stories up on Veterans Today. I've been doing more and more stories now. And then you've got David Rockefeller and Meyer Rothschild and Bill Grace of Grace and Company, George Herbert Walker Bush, Henry Kissinger, Anwar bin Shari, the head rabbi of all the synagogues worldwide, operating out of Israel, and Pope Benedict, who was, caught having sex with kids that scandalized him, and he resigned as the Pope. And then there's three others that I don't know who they are, but I know that one of them, their right-hand goon, who's an Oriental, his name is Tony Wong, W-O-N-G. And he's committing massive cyber terrorism against me and Veterans Today. And I've logged over 56,000 felonies. And they were using also Army intelligence out of a fort in Arizona that was printed by Gordon Duff a couple weeks ago, the senior editor of Veterans Today, because he identified it and he's getting it shut down. But this other three Illuminati, I don't know who they are. I don't know their names. They're hidden.
What?
And they're all devil
Yes, sir.
worshippers, and they do human sacrifices upon infants on a
Yes,
regular
sir.
basis each year. And a year ago in June, I got them busted. They actually caught a kid at a Walmart, and I'll play it for your audience since we have enough time in this broadcast. I'm pulling it up now, but they got caught, and they do this every summer and winter solstice in Denver, Colorado. It's something to do with the ley lines, they call it, and they do it on the 21st at what they call the witching hour, 21st of June, the summer solstice, between 12 a.m. and 3, and they do it on December the 22nd, the winter solstice, between 12 a.m. and 3, and they have sex with children, small children, at their pre-ritual parties, they call it. Many of them, they used to pass their own children, and they'll pass their own grandchildren if they can get them to attend the party without, and most of this is generational Satanism, is what it is. They're raised as Satanists. And so
I do believe it. I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to.
So last June, I'm going to play it now, and there's a commercial in here. I'm going to try to play it, but there's a commercial, but I got them busted. I did a story on BT, and Gordon Duff, who's an intelligence officer, was able to put an Amber Alert out, and they didn't get a kid to sacrifice that year. Now, we're kind of hearing the commercial in the background. I'm trying to cut the volume here of it, but they weren't able to pull this off. So as a result, there was a guy that was killed at a Walmart trying to kidnap it. Now, I'll play it for you.
Now, also, we have new details on Monday's deadly standoff in Midwest City involving a Dallas man, a 2-year-old, and Midwest City police.
Search warrants just released today show the man made some bizarre statements during the standoff and also kept a notebook full of religious writings. Midnight Contractor Adrian Vashinsky joins us live in the newsroom with our top story. Well, Amanda, this search warrant was just filed this afternoon and details what happened during the hostage situation. It also lays out what police found at the suspect's apartment in Midwest City. This is where Midwest City police say 37-year-old Sammy Lamont Wallace lived since January 16th of this year. Apartment 3 is the Parkview Apartments, located near Reno and Midwest Boulevard.
I really can't believe he lives here.
The search warrant states police seized both a 3-ring binder and a spiral notebook filled with religious writings inside the apartment. They also seized the suspect's OG&E bill, a bank statement, and took photos of the scene. Court records show Wallace was from the Dallas, Texas area and was a wanted felon. His criminal background shows he had been arrested for assault and battery and robbery with a dangerous weapon, as well as harassment. He'd even served time in prison. Police say on Monday, Wallace entered this Walmart neighborhood market less than a mile away from his apartment and held a 2-year-old girl hostage, threatening her life with a knife. Police say during their negotiations, Wallace made mention of a group named the Illuminati. Police claim their research shows the Illuminati is a satanic cult and that they learned June 21st is their day of human sacrifice. But why Wallace chose June 17th to take the girl hostage is still unknown. Police say they were unsuccessful in their attempts to negotiate with Wallace and say they had to use deadly force to save the child's life. The search warrant states Wallace was shot only one time and was pronounced dead at the hospital.
I think that they did what they had to do.
Now, we do know that the child and her mother were not harmed during that terrifying standoff. Police are not releasing their name at this time. Live in the newsroom, Adriana Ivashinsky, News 9. At least not physically harmed. All right, Adriana. Midwest City Police have identified Captain David Huff as the officer who shot and killed Wallace. Huff has been on the force for 22 years. It will be up to the DA to determine if the use of deadly force was justified.
Now, that was TV9, Oklahoma City.
So, Stu, I do believe me and you. I'm sorry, real quick. I believe it was you and I. We were on December 22nd of the solstice this past year. We did a show on that and APAC as well.
You may have been. People would have to go to your site, go to the archives. If we did it, I'd probably have it in archives as well on my site.
Yes, sir.
But they do this all around the world. And today I learned on the show or after the show, that they do it down on Jupiter Island, Daddy Bush's big compound down there in Florida, Jupiter Island, Florida. They do rituals down there as well. These are Satanists. These aren't Christians. They're out to have New World Order, a one world government where the devil's in control. And I've heard that all 12 of these men are possessed by fallen angels. Some call them aliens. And that there's 20 million of these hybrids. The word is, from what I've understood from U.S. intelligence on this and foreign intelligence, is there's 200,000 of these things that are possessing humans. There's 200,000 humans in the top of this food chain, this Illuminati food chain, that are all possessed by these alien/fallen angels, and that there's 20 million hybrids, clones, cutouts that they have among them that are working at the highest levels of government and creating shadow governments within governments. We have a stranglehold over all human race on the planet, and we need to changes things, but we need to take them out. It's to a point they have to be stopped.
Absolutely, sir. And just a little biblical background on that. If people don't believe what Stu is telling you, I suggest that you pick up your Bible. There are a lot of passages, and if I had mine handy, I would pull them out for you. At this present time, I do not. But I suggest that you read on this. This is biblical prophecy, what is being played out right now with your life, my life, and every life on this planet. This is, whether you're religious or not, you need to get with the program. These are the people who kill, like Stu said. They kidnap kids. They have sex with kids. They sacrifice children. As a matter of fact, you can't even be on these people's playing field if you're not willing to kill massive amounts of people. And if you don't have the right blood, it doesn't matter. You can shoot for the stars, but you're only going to get so high.
I might add to that, on the biblical side, happens to be that I have faith in Christ and God, and if it wasn't for them, I'd be dead. He does say if you ask for angels of protection in Psalms 92 and 93, I give them to you, if you have faith and belief. But in where we need to start to have an understanding is, you can read the book of Revelations, and everything's unfolding. It will probably all unfold within the next 1.5 to 2 years. People can delay this, put a stop to it, if they would return to God and seek His face, and get on their knees and pray. But let's have a little biblical history here. It says in Genesis 3:23, in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve had a dual conception, basically. They had two children, twins, Cain and Abel. And then it says in Genesis 3:23, he beguiled me. When God asked Eve what happened, he beguiled me, he had sex with me. Now that was the dual conception. Cain was the first to kill another human being. That was the Nephilim.
Absolutely.
Satan's blood, his son, the mother, being normal, human. Because they mate.
That's right.
It says in Genesis 6, the fallen angels mate with humans, and it's their offspring. This is the reason God created the big flood. Got rid of everybody.
Yes, sir.
Noah and the birds and all the animals and his family and others, they went on the big boat and they survived. Now, that was the cleansing of all this mass and all this evil that God did once before. Well, these are back doing it again. And what I've discovered in the history of these people, the ones that are in Israel today that call themselves Jews, who created JDL, who created the Anti-Defamation League, the Jewish Defense League, the Simon Wiesenthal Center, and Mizell Judea, Museum of Judea in Denver, the Cell, the counterintelligence cell, and all these other Israeli Mossad fake Jew stuff, is that this bloodline, which is, they used to call themselves the 13th tribe of Israel. Israel didn't have 13 tribes. Every human on the planet is from the 12 tribes of Israel, except for the fallen ones. The 13th tribe were the Canaanites. They always wanted to mate with the other tribes. They got cleansed. God started it all over. The point that I'm making is the Khazarians, which was out of Khazar, Russia, which is the same area the Ukraine is today. They are the ones that took over Israel in 1947, declared it to be a state. Okay, they're the ones that have pushed John Hagee, the TV minister, Pat Robertson, paid him and bribed him to push the stuff about, oh, the Jews, they're the chosen people. The Bible says it. There's a little more history. In the 1400s, if you could get a Bible back in the 1400s, which is nearly impossible, and copy it, you'd make a fortune. There hardly any survive or exist. Those that have been auctioned off for $20 to $30 million, and it's these Illuminati buying them up because they don't want you to have the true word. Because in the dark ages of the 1500s, the Roman Catholic Church was there to create organized religion to keep the Christians at bay. Come in to worship me, I'm Pokemon. I'm God, I'm Pokemon. I'll replace Jesus Christ and God, and you can worship me and call me Father. But the Bible says you don't call any man Father except your earthly father and your heavenly Father. He says you don't call Rabbi, that means Father, because you don't have a rabbi. If they tried to hijack God Almighty during that period of time, and they changed the Bible, and they created the word the Star of David. They created the word, David had no star, King David of Israel, and they created the word Jew. Before, it was the Judea tribe. If you go to the front of my internet site, at the bottom in the middle column, there is a John Hopkins University report by a true Judea tribe member, a professor, who, all the people that from the Judaic tribe always think that they're Jews, and it's not. It's because they came to believe there's such a word as a Jew, and they've all called themselves that. But in that John Hopkins University report, they did a 5-year investigation. Veterans Today was the only one to print it in America. All over Europe they printed it, and they were shocked to find this out, that 8 out of the 10 Palestinians in the Gaza are the true Jews, if you want to call them Jews, from the true Judea bloodline. And 8 out of 10 of them living in Israel today are the fake Jews living that came out of Khazar. 8 out of 10 of them in Israel are not Semites at all. But yet they claim they've hijacked the Israeli name, or the Jewish name, the identity, and what are they doing right now? They're doing the same thing as they tried to do in World War II. They're trying to kill off the Judea bloodline, what you could call a true Jew. And that's what's going on today. We have Satan running the show worldwide through his little dominions, his ministerial staff. You could call them his disciples, the 12, who are controlling everybody, and they're controlling Israel. And they keep putting on this big show. Oh, Israel, you can't talk about us because you would be saying you're an anti-Semitic. Oh, we're calling you anti-Semitic. That's just a big front for all this killing and mass murder that they're doing. They hate us. We are human beings. The fallen angels and these aliens hate us. They were here to test us. They hate us because their trip, in the end, they're in the lake of fire. Our trip, either get heaven or hell. But we can put a stop to what they're trying to do, which is they're trying right now to cause World War III. And they hate America. They hate Goyim, they call us. America. Gentiles.
Well,
they hate
anybody
that believes in God. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to, real quick, for any new listener, I wanted them to be able to, you asked people to go to your website. Would you put that out there one time again for us, sir, just in case somebody doesn't know where to go to find that?
You don't have to call me sir if my name's Stu.
I know.
I take that out of respect, and I thank you for saying that, but call me Stu. But my website, www.stewwebb, STEWWEBB.com. Now, if it's slow load or something, I haven't cleaned it off today. That's the cyber terrorism by Chinese intelligence. It owned Worthington Bank, Little Rock, Arkansas, which is the Lippo group. That 5 of them were indicted, these Chinese military officers, over there 2 months ago for stealing intellectual property over the internet. It's the same group run by a Tony Wong. Tony, I hope you're listening. He owns a Viasat satellite company out of Denver, Inglewood, Colorado, and he's tied up with the 12. And so he cyber terrorism me because I've got the stuff up there on these people. So it's kind of slow code. I'll have it cleaned off later. If you have problems getting to that genome factor in the middle bottom column, just come back later because I'll have it cleaned off. I have to clean off, take about 2 hours each day and clean all this clog that they're doing. And they're even trying to redirect my site to some other site and doing all kinds of stuff. But anyway.
I was so happy that you said that. I was going to reiterate that for you. The Palestinian, now this goes down to the genomic level. This isn't something that some scientists said, oh, well, these people, they could be. No, this goes down to the exact science, to the very DNA and RNA that's in your body. This is the gospel, ladies and gentlemen. The people that are being killed right now are the same people.
This was done by, if you want to call them true Jews, the Palestinians. If you want, we were going to use the word Jew because everybody seems to know the word Jew. Okay?
Right.
The Palestinians are real. This guy wasn't a Palestinian. He claims to be a Judea tribe, and he found out his brethren are the Palestinians. And here he's a professor at Johns Hopkins University.
You don't get any clearer.
Anti-Semitic. They can't do that, and they can't refute that evidence that he has accumulated. They just won't put it to print any place.
Yeah, well, just like they do with you, Stu, they bury it and they redirect it and they put all this other stuff in front of it because, let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, most of us are just flat out lazy. Oh, it didn't work the first time, on to the next thing. Some things, ladies and gentlemen, are worth digging. And if you want the truth, trust me, you're going to dig through a lot of bullshit before you get to it.
Got that right. I've dug through a lot of stuff. They probably still haven't found all of it.
Dylan, you're going to get a wake-up call before this show's over, I hope. I hope your listening audience is too. And I respect you for doing 15 years of age out here doing a radio program, internet radio, YouTube program. I salute you, Dylan. And you know, the girl that is the producer on my show on Wednesdays on themicroeffect.com, we get about 30 million listeners there. She's 14 years of age. She's the producer of the show. Homeschooled, getting ready to graduate from high school. Smart girl, quite awake. And she's heard over the past 2 or 3 years that she's been doing this, she's got her ear filled, and she understands the bigger picture. And I hope, Dylan, after in the next few months, you get a full earful too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've already learned a lot from this, from the few minutes we've done this show. I've already learned a whole lot.
And Dylan, trust me, Stu is full of so much more. You can ask Stu just about anything. You can ask Stu about APACs. You can ask Stu about 9/11, about the 96 federal building bombing. There's not too much that this man does not know. Anything that you feel, Dylan, if you have something to say, brother, this is your show. I'm not trying to hog your show up, brother. I just I've spoke with Stu on many occasions, both on the air and off the air. There's not too many people out there that get the respect that this man gets. So when he speaks, it doesn't matter. Listen.
I'll tell you, you know, Dylan, a lot of my knowledge comes from being locked up as a political prisoner and then the charges dismissed against me with prejudice. They were supposedly harassing, threatening death threats to my ex-in-laws that didn't occur. And I have the document that shows the U.S. attorney where he laundered his money through M&L $1.5 million for doing that to me. He got in the way of a bribe from Millman, and Millman got popped over it later, $80 million fine. But I was locked up with 2,000 Iran-Contra political prisoners as well. When it fell apart, Daddy Bush had them all arrested to silence everybody. And he gave Ollie North a presidential pardon. He gave Casper Weinberger, the Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense, a presidential pardon. He gave Admiral John Poindexter a presidential pardon on Christmas Eve of 1992 before he left office because independent prosecutor Lawrence Walsh had indicted him. So he obstructed justice. It's illegal for you to give a presidential pardon to criminals that are your partners. And then Clinton comes in, helps obstruct, fires Lawrence Walsh, and basically Kenny Starr, whose father owned Starr International before his death, that Millman and Bush and Ray Baker took over, which is run by Maurice Greenberg, and Starr International is the parent company you never hear about of AIG Insurance Company, the world's largest insurer, with 5,000 companies underneath their umbrella. So they covered it up. They got rid of documents in the Oklahoma City building, and it became, excuse the expression, oral sex inside the White House with Monica Lewinsky, and they lied under oath. And that's how they made it go away. The crossover is drugs and guns, Iran-Contra, Mena, Arkansas, and the Clintons' involvement in all of the stuff. And the Republicans with the Bushes. And there's no difference between either side. And our country's in bad shape because these Israelis, this Jewish mob, as AIPAC, has controlled and bribed and put into office the Congress and Senate. They're Israeli senators first, and they have taken Homeland Security with dual citizens like Chertoff and others, and they made Homeland Security into a complete Israeli organization, basically, under the control of Homeland Security, and they've got it at the highest level still with these neocons, these ones that answer to Israeli first. They're trying to destroy America. They have used us up. And when you take and look at these 12 Illuminati, they control Israel, they control the U.S. And what are they doing? We have a war in Iraq that's created illegally by them with the Bushes. Now they've created ISIL, ISIL, this army that came out of nowhere, out of Syria. The army that's in Syria fight the Syrian government, and the Syrian people are Daddy Bush and Israel's boys. The ones in Iza in Iraq are the Israelis and Daddy Bush's boys. And it's all being financed by Saudi Arabia to keep from tracking the money back to Bush and Israel. The Ukraine and the plane being shot down. Veterans Today has the proof the Israelis were behind it. They're getting ready to release the rest. They have satellite photos and the whole bit, and the Malaysian airliner. And then you can look at the situation in Gaza. Hamas, Hillary Clinton was on the air today on a TV network. Oh, the Hamas is a terrorist organization. Everybody should remember that. The Hamas is the Israelis, again, creating an incident inside of the Gaza so they can eliminate all the true Jews, Satan himself, can get rid of them, Satan, Israel, and dispose of the real Jews, which that's what it's all about. And all those out here say, oh, but the Bible says the Jews are the chosen people. Chosen for what? In the 1600s is when they put that in the Bible. These were the people that were the money changers in the synagogue that rejected Christ and wouldn't listen to him.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I would like to go into the death of America and maybe your opinion on Barry Soetoro, Barack Obama, whatever people call him nowadays.
Before that, could I ask a question? Sorry.
Barack Obama was controlled and handled by them. Barack Obama now isn't quite listening totally to him. And the reason is because Barack Obama has been indicted. And there's an indictment being held over his head by the U.S. military. And we have a good General, Dempsey. We have a good Secretary of Defense, Mr. Hagel, who, when he was senator from Nebraska, U.S. Senator from Nebraska, he said up on the Senate floor, I am not an Israeli senator. I am an American senator, when everybody else is bought and paid for by Israel, which is AIPAC, the American Israeli Pact, that has a stranglehold over our government. So therefore, we have a few good people. We have the old intel cowboys of the past and the current, the younger ones and the older ones. Some of them are retired, most of them are active, and they're saying enough's enough. We cannot allow this to go on. A U.S. intelligence report came out in 2012, in September. 16 agencies report. That's all the U.S. intelligence agencies combined. Their report read that George Herbert Walker Bush and the Bush family, Jeb, Neil, Marvin, George W., Bill and Hillary Clinton, Leonard Millman, my ex-in-law, Larry Mizell, his stooge, front buffer cut out for him, bank bailout scamster, among others, including AIPAC, were the ones that were behind the Jonathan Pollard spy ring that was selling nuclear codes to Russia.
Yeah, you can also put on that list. You can also
that they were behind 9/11 and the attack on America and planted nukes inside the building. Nukes that we've discovered, Gordon Duff has discovered with Russian intelligence in the past 2 months. It was nukes that blew the building. But that they were behind the Bushes and the Israelis, the AIPAC boys, which Mizell is the director of, and the attorney, who was Millman, Mizell, and Daddy Bush's attorney, Norman Brownstein's an AIPAC director. And they're also on the directorship of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. And they have another partner, Phil Wynn, the hub scamster that never went to jail. And they got that all taken care of. And he had been indicted and pled guilty, never went to jail. And Bill Clinton gave him a presidential pardon because Bill Clinton's attorney was on the board of directors of MDC. He's on the board, Phil Wynn's on the board of the ADL. So they control these organizations. Anyway, this report read they had been the three big, huge financial ripoffs of the U.S. government and the American people. One was the Savings and Loan, and the second was the Resolution Trust Corp. That was created to hide the S&L problem and to allow them to buy up all the property for pennies on the dollar. And the third has been bank bailout. And they are the ones that own the Federal Reserve, have taken over in the generations the Federal Reserve, which was created in 1913 and when our country was hijacked. But these are the people that were also involved in the murder of President John F. Kennedy. And their tracks are all over the board. And Jim Fetzer is an expert in this, Professor James Fetzer, that's one of our authors, editors on Veterans Today. And he's written massively and extensively on the Kennedy murder. Go punch it up. Just like Sandy Hook, the shootings. Oh, they shot up and killed all these kids. Not one kid died. They just proved it less than 2.5 weeks ago on Veterans Today that it was a drill. It was a total drill, a psyops on the American people on so-called national TV and news, so-called news, to take away your Second Amendment right to own a gun.
So,
and not one kid was killed, and Obama officials now have admitted it was a drill. So we're always under these psyops with the TV and even with the internet, with all the trolls and all the disinformation sites and all the disinformation artists who are working for them, such as, we'll name a few, most of the ones at Ren's Radio, definitely Alex Jones, Glenn Beck, Matt Drudge,
Pete Santilli.
all the answers directly to the Israelis at Fox News, who's their handler. And it's all APEC controlled, and they have a section of the FBI and Homeland Security, they call it Division Number 5, where they pay these trolls to go put out disinformation on the internet consistently with disinformation stories, which is their line for the day, which is a slight spin from so-called mainstream TV news. Veterans Today has grown in 2 years' time to become the #1 media in the country now. We lead the numbers because of the truth that is being put out for 2 solid years on there and all the details. And it has grown, and our numbers are there.
Can you go into the $3.2 trillion that was stolen from us on September 10th, 2001?
The what?
And real quick, Stu, we want to commend you for what you do again. There are not many people out there who have the cojones that you have, and also the other authors and editors on Veterans Today. If you have not been to this website, ladies and gentlemen, you need to mark it. Bookmark this, make it a favorite. These are things you need to stay current with.
Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, if you want to become what we're calling a Veterans Today truth warrior and help spread and blanket America and blanket the entire country, where people could start reading, we've started on Facebook. We have facebook.com/Veterans Today Truth Warriors, and every one of the stories are being put up there. So if you're a member of Facebook, have an account there, go up to the site and click like and share on all the stories for the day. Start spreading them. You're getting 99.9999% true, accurate information coming out of U.S. intelligence, and U.S. intelligence is now dumping on us, on all of us, and others in the background who are helping us. And they want the truth taken to the American people, and they want no more of these lies and cover-ups. They want the American people to get armed, get locked and loaded, and get prepared mentally to take it over.
Stu, can you talk about the $3.2 trillion that were stolen on September 10th from from us and how the auditors were in the Pentagon.
You mean the 3.2 trillion that was stolen between 91 and 2001?
Yes.
Catherine Fitz, she reported on that. She found that. She has Solare.com, SOLARE.com. When I called the HUD hearings in 1989 about Denver stealing all this HUD money, they brought her in underneath Jack Kemp, replaced the football player, former senator or congressman, whatever he was. He was the cover-up meister for him. So they brought him in. Well, they had to find somebody that was smart enough, supposedly, and clean, so they brought in Catherine Fitz, who was a Wall Street little genius and in finance, and they brought her in to get to the bottom of it and clean it up. So they made her undersecretary at HUD. Well, they never let her do her job. Matter of fact, Jack Kemp fired her 3 times and hired her back 3 times. He got his rear end in a sling with the Congress over it. There were a few good congressmen back then. And later on, they nearly killed her. She had gone into private business where Al Gore, the only thing he got done, which he's actually a good guy, but they put him underneath Clinton. It was actually Ross Perot, folks, got Al Gore in. And I'll tell you the story about it in a few minutes. But Catherine Fitz, and under Gore's one thing that he got put in when he was vice president was, if you could show how government-private partnership agreement, if you could show how you can save the government money, and you can prove this, this over here is not working, so, if you do it this way, bam, you save the government X number of dollars, they'll pay you a small percentage of that savings. Well, she had earned about $2.5 million over a year period of time, showing that through reinsurance program, there was frauds going on. Well, they had control by that time the Inspector General's office. So they weren't going to pay her. Well, she was fighting them during that period of time. I used to deal with her and talk to her a lot, because she came to me 8 years afterwards and said, "Stu, we never met, but I was the one that's put in place after you caused the HUD scandal." So back in the late 90s, I Iran Contra whistleblower Alan Martin, and I helped get his book published, The Conspirators. It's a great read. You can find it on the front of my site, the left bottom column. I've contributed to 15 of those books, and only 7 times does my name appear. But in his book, he even mentions my ex-in-laws and all the Bushes and security fraud, etc. Him and I helped her to try to get her money. She never got it. She finally settled for $200,000. But during that period of time, she had found the missing money at the Pentagon. That was between 1991 and 2001. There was $3.2 million that Dynacorp, who had become the actual accountant for the United States government in all these agencies and all these programs, which was Bush and Melvin, hidden behind the scenes, was ripping off the government. She found out also, and I give credit to her for this, she also found 60 billion missing at HUD in a 2-year period of time. That's what I know about the Pentagon money. Also, in the same spot that a cruise missile hit the Pentagon, and we know now it's a cruise missile, it wasn't an airplane. It was a cruise missile that was fired in there, that was stolen. And I'll say something that hadn't been written yet, because we want to keep somebody alive, but the customs have generated a report on that one missing cruise that the United States arsenal is still missing. That was the cruise missile, and it was out of Arizona. Went through there, the customs had it nailed. And the Clintons covered it up for the Bushes. Now, that missile hit the exact spot where auditors, Inspector General auditors of the Pentagon, were in there investigating at the time on the day of 9/11. I think that answered your question, didn't it?
It did, yes.
Yep.
Now, I'll finish another part I said that needed to be finished. I talked to Ross Perot during the election of 1992. I was hiding from the FBI that had warrants for my arrest. for supposed death threats against my ex-in-law that never occurred. And they dropped the charges because I had a good, straight judge appointed to the case in the last few months of the case, because I had screamed at Judge Sherman Feinsilver, a cover-up meister there, and it got him so embarrassed in front of press he had no other choice but to recuse himself because of his obstruction. And it's pretty vulgar words he used: get him the F out of my courtroom now. And so he recused himself. Judge Richard Mage was appointed and dismissed the charges later, and screamed at the U.S. Prosecutor's Office for wasting $750,000 of taxpayers' money for trying to illegally prosecute an innocent man, me. During 1992, while I'm hiding from the FBI during the election, I reached out to Ross Perot because a spook told me to, someone in the CIA. I reached out to him. I found out that Al Martin, who I was dealing through Margie Sloan of Time magazine, that was one of the main writers for Pete Bruton in his book, The Mafia, CIA, and Bush, which is very accurate. It's up on my site also. I'm a contributor to that, but my name I asked not to appear because I was inside federal prison when it was published, and I didn't want to get killed. They wanted to know what I knew, and I wasn't giving it up because they put other prisoners on you asking questions. When you know too much, your library card expires. That's the infamous words that Daddy Bush says to kill him. Now, I talked with Ross Perot during that period of time, gave him stuff on the savings and loan scandal, gave him stuff on HUB scandal and other things, and greasing the congressmen and senators. He actually was on TV programs in speech using my material. There were others that were charging him, such as Al Martin. He actually paid Al Martin money. I never asked for any money. I found out later. But there was other things. There was Gunther Russbacher, who was really true, but he was trying to expose the October surprise deal where Bush had paid the Iranians to keep the hostages, and I actually know Harry Rupp knew him for his death, and he was the pilot that flew him over there. And yes, George Bush on the tarmac in Paris got on an SR-71 and flew back so he would be in New York and possibly be there, but he was there. Being an ex-CI director, they did that. I was actually incarcerated with Bob Hunt, who was Naval SEAL Lieutenant Commander during the time I was illegally incarcerated. He was the one that captured Noriega. He was on the tarmac guarding then Vice President to be, possibly to be, George H.W. Bush in Paris. And Gunther Russbacher released it, but he lied about being the SR-71 pilot because his cousin was the colonel pilot, and he didn't want to get him killed. Now, with that said, Ross Perot was given that information by Russbacher. That was one of the ways the doors was opened up to Ross Perot, me reaching out. Because Rodney Stitch, that wrote The Fraud in America, I'm in, is one of the best reads, along with The Conspirators and the Mafia and CIA and George Bush and some others. It was very accurate. Now, Rodney's got a lot of other books out since then. I don't know how many are accurate. It seems that he's gotten a carrot from time to time, but I respect him. He's 90-some-odd years of age, and people get carrots if they don't have the sources. Rodney's source died 4 or 5 years ago, and that was Russbacher. Now, Ross Perot talked to me during the election when other people wouldn't talk. They would call him. He wouldn't return their call. For some reason, maybe it's because I wasn't charging him and I was being straight with him, he would take my calls in 1992. I made a call to Margie Sloan. She says, Stu, because I tried to reach out to her every day because she was doing some radio shows with me. I was hiding from the FBI. And her attorney was actually helping me, Phyllis Cox. She was Archibald Cox, the Watergate prosecutor that they fired, silencing. It was his daughter. And she was in Denver. And I would call her, and then she would call the radio station collect. So they didn't know where the call came from, so they couldn't track it to me. She was acting as my counsel to keep me alive. Well, I would call Ross Perot, and Ross Perot would talk to me direct. I told him that they're trying to compromise you. I said, we have a colonel inside the White House that gave us information, and this colonel says that they have that they're going to try to put some kind of thing down on your head, and that there was a fax that came through Pennzoil headquarters, J. Hugh Lickey at Pennzoil, in need of $2.5 million for lockdown on Bush competition in Dallas. And it happens to be that money was taken up that afternoon. And then when I put that out on a radio show years ago, a huge network, it was a Chuck Harder's network, and read that fax, they fired everybody at Pennzoil, 250 employees, and 2 weeks later hired 250 new employees because they didn't know who it was. Well, I gave that fax to Ross Perot, and that fax that I gave to him the next day, along with the word that we got from the colonel, he resigned in the presidential race. He backed out. He regrouped, got himself back together, and when he came back out in September and announced that he was, or late August, September of 1992, that he was going to run again, I picked up the phone the next day and called him. And his girl was a secretary whose name was Barbara Conley. And I called her, and she hooked me up immediately with Mr. Ross Perot. And I said, Ross, I said, why are you getting back in? I said, it's basically they run you from being president. He says, Stu, I'll get enough votes. I will suck them off of George Bush. We'll put Clinton in. He's dirty. We've got Al Gore that's semi-clean. And then Clinton will be impeached from office, and they'll all burn over this Iran contract. It never happened. But Ross Perot tried. And let me tell you something that I know about Ross Perot. He went through the Naval Academy, and he never served in the Navy. And usually when that happens, that means they're working for some U.S. intelligence agency. And he was also the one who was put on the oversight committee by Ronald Reagan after Daddy Bush's good buddy's son, John Hinckley, shot Reagan to kill him. A few days later, Reagan put Ross Perot and 5 other men on a special committee as an oversight on the CIA. Did I say enough?
Oh, you said enough.
That's a lot of info to take
I have
in.
the phone bill still buried in archives 150 miles from me that show the phone calls to Ross Perot.
That's a whole lot to take in.
So that's the reason Clinton's never got removed, because we had a crime syndicate controlling the Justice Department, always have. And if you read my Worldwide Financial Crimes Revealed, which is about the bank bailout, I'm going to probably have 30 stories in the next few months on this before it's going to be said fully and done. You will see in the first one, the Eric Holder law firm, the Attorney General of the U.S., he represented banks and covered up for the banks before he became Attorney General. And now he's doing...
Oh, Holder is every bit as dirty as any of them.
He needs to be tried for treason and sedition and co-conspiracy to treason and sedition. Why is it, if they've done a 16 intelligence agency report, said these men did all this nasty stuff and all these massive crimes and started wars based on lies and done all this other stuff and is hauling in all the heroin in from Afghanistan into the United States with drones and all the other stuff, blew up a building, 2 buildings in New York, killed over 3,000 Americans on that day. Plus, now we have nukes we know went off up there. Gordon Duff, in a series about it, has revealed that U.S. intelligence information. And 70,000 people in New York are dying from radiation poisoning, and they're using them as guinea pigs to do stem cell research. That's also in Gordon's series of stories. And if you were to turn off the lights in New York at night, the place would glow. If you had your Geiger counters up there, you would not want to be there. The whole place is radiated. It's a city that has had nuclear explosions, and people have died, and they didn't know they had radiation poisoning. I wouldn't set foot on that island for anything in the world. If they've done this, how come they haven't been prosecuted?
Because they control it.
They control your government at the highest level. Now, Barack Obama's been waking up and getting briefings and waking up to things. This is one of the reasons he's a bay about starting wars right now that don't need to be started. And they don't want us to end the war in Afghanistan. They don't want us to end the war in Iraq because they have control of the oil. Dennis, it's all based on natural resources of another country they're stealing. It's about oil.
All wars are banker wars.
Oh, it's fact. If you take it, what Dennis Kucinich, a good congressman, you find him on Facebook, Dennis Kucinich, former congressman, U.S. congressman, wrote impeachment proceedings and introduced them to the Congress on July the 20th, 2008. In his report, he had it exactly right. He said it was based on lies. We all heard that. First, it was Cheney's all made-up garbage, Dick Cheney. He made up garbage about weapons of mass destruction that led to Bowery Plane nearly getting killed. Got 244 informants and 6 federal agents killed over it that Scooter Libby was indicted over for leaking it and never went to jail. Bush gave him a piece of paper, said you don't have to go to jail, just pay the fine. So he didn't get a presidential pardon because that would look like too much obstruction and cover up. And when you look at that and you look at Dennis Kucinich's report to the Congress for reason for impeachment that was introduced, remember it was July the 20th, 2008, a few months before Bush was to leave office. It said, basically, the war was based on a lie, there weren't any weapons of mass destruction, and second, Halliburton Corporation was only getting, Daddy Bush and Cheney's company was only getting 10% of the oil out of Iraq before the war. They were partners with Saddam Hussein. Then, after the war, that the five sister oil companies, Shell and Mobil and Exxon and et cetera, the 5 sisters they call them, used to be the 7, now they call them the 5 because they've consolidated BP and all of them. They're the 12 Illuminati own those oil companies. And it said that the 5 sisters are getting 90% of all the oil out of Iraq, and the Iraqi government is only getting 10%. Now, they want the same thing in the Ukraine. It's about oil and gas pipelines, that these fake Jews in Israel have controlled the Ukrainian government over there. And Russian putting nose, and the people have had basically a revolution. They've had this privatized army over there of the Halliburton boys and the hired mercenaries. They call them Gladio, that are Izza, and the ones bombing Syria and shot the gas off in Syria. It almost causes World War III a few months back. And the ones that are over there, supposedly Hamas, shooting a few bottle rockets at Israel, while Israel's going in and bombing women and children and slaying them like mass extermination. And when you look at what it's all about, is the control of oil in the Middle East. They want to start war with Iran. Why?
Because they're the main
Iran
oil
is selling
producer in the
oil
Middle
to
East.
the world for $20 a barrel less than OPEC nations. OPEC
Absolutely right.
72 by Daddy Bush. Iran is willing to sell if we signed a peace treaty with them. They've never bombed us. They've never harmed us, the U.S. in any way. They are actually our ally and friend that people don't know about. They are willing to buy 10,000 Chevrolet, Ford, and Dodge pickups per month with a guaranteed 10-year contract, and they'll pay for them with oil at $20 a barrel less, and that means at pump prices, gas We're at 320 right now because it's down, but with the spot market and the price, they're hovering that $100 a barrel benchmark that OPEC has wanted. We could be down at the pump at about 250, two and a quarter to 250 a gallon at $80 a gallon price or barrel price. Think about it.
You're absolutely right, Stu. I'm sorry that it's so loud. I'm backing up as much as I can. I don't want to not be heard. What a lot of people don't seem to realize either is the defense treaty that Syria and Iran have signed together. They want a war with Syria, but they can't have war with Syria without having war with Iran as well.
And they're still trying for that.
Veterans Today managing editor Jim Dean was the only U.S. press invited a month and a half, 2 months ago to go monitor the Syrian elections. Press from all over Europe showed up. It was a legal, honest, straightforward election. Why would Syria only invite Veterans Today? Because they felt it's the only true news coming out in America. Jim Dean took a staff and went over there, and he went around hotel to hotel and business to business, and he talked to people on the streets, and he had an interpreter as well, and he asked them straight up about the Syrian government. They all love their president. He's not a dictator. And the people themselves in Syria are part of a militia of citizens to help stop Daddy Bush's privatized al-Qaeda army that's operating in Syria, that shot the innocent women and children with sarin gas, that Barack Obama and John Kerry come out and say, oh, they're shooting them all with gas, the Syrian government. No. Videotapes up on Veterans Today, they proved it and helped stop that war.
So, Stu, I'm a little confused about something. You say that Obama's really not listening to them at the moment. So, is he trying to start these wars on his own accord?
He has been a puppet from them from the beginning. He's starting to get religion, it's called. He hasn't quite got full religion yet. He does not know the impact of his atrocities and of his treason and sedition that he has done against this country quite yet. It hasn't sunk in. He's surrounded by a bunch of neocon, fake Jews who are in there in behalf of the Bushes crime syndicate, who have been leading him around by his ear and his nose and telling him what to do. And he's found out that all of a sudden there's a military presence that is saying that isn't going to happen. There have been 2,800 military officers relieved of duty and fired by Barack Obama. They were all bad people. They answered to Daddy Bush and the Israelis, which is this AIPAC crowd that controls America. Millman, Mizell, and Brownstein, and Rosenbaum, or Rose or whatever his name is. And I've had Gwyneth Todd on. She infiltrated. She was NSA, and she infiltrated in behalf of the FBI back in the 90s, AIPAC. And they found out that they were up to their eyeballs in espionage against the United States of America.
So Obama is against these people, is working with us.
Realizing that he's going to be in handcuffs, and he's going to go down in history of being in handcuffs with the rest of them if he goes and allows any wars to be started. He keeps getting a big fat live carrot from these ones that surround him, his aides.
So he's...
Valerie Jarrett and Rice are two of the clowns, these two females, and in my opinion, now, I think they're providing sexual favors to him, and he just can't get rid of them and fire
them. Well, I wonder if they'll use him as a fall guy if he's starting to get rebellious.
He's been the puppet that they've played, and he's right in the middle of trying to get his brain straight and he hears one thing, and he hears another thing, and then he realizes he can't move much.
Right. I don't think he's working
Let me
for
tell you
us.
something. There's a story for the edification of all your listeners here. If they were to go to my website and you were to look up on the search box on the right top column, there's three columns, there's kind of a block at the top, and then there's a right column. In the search box, put in U.S. dictatorship in free fall. And go read the article by Gordon Duff.
I will certainly do that.
Then, on that same page where you put in U.S. dictatorship in free fall, mark it, scroll down the page, and you'll see two speeches by Barack Obama, videos. He said last year, if I serve out my presidential term, and read U.S. dictatorship in free fall, you'll get a bigger grasp of what good people in our government are trying to do and why the cleanup is happening now.
So, Stu, would you
get involved?
Stu, would you consider Obama one of the good people?
Obama's sitting on the fence post at the current time. He could fall either way over the fence. Which way does he want to go? Handcuffs, or does he think he's going to become a total dictator, whichever. We have the problem that he has is that the entire Congress and Senate is bought and paid for by the Israelis.
Well, his whole party.
Most of them at the NSA are bought and paid for by the Israelis, which are the Bush crime syndicate, known as the Bushes here in America crime syndicate. And Barack Obama has been turning against them because he gets these reports from U.S. intelligence and the military, who are good guys that have had enough.
I think he's going to rebel against them, but I think he's going to do his own thing.
Well, you know what they say. You can't sit on the fence too terribly long before you get impaled by it. He's going to have to make a decision, and he's going to have to make a decision very soon. And
it all falls in line with the BRICS banking system that's been put into place. He can go one of two ways with it, and I feel like he's going to go the way that they want him to go in this scenario, and he's going to start. I think he's going to start something with the BRICS Union, and there are now reports that Germany is going to join the BRICS Union, which would be a big twist.
And Europe does not want BRIC to be in existence because it's backed by gold with Russia and China and the other country. Where the Federal Reserve, your dollar, has been hijacked. It's a private corporation. It is not part of the U.S. government, which it was until 1913. And only the Congress and Senate can own money, not a private Federal Reserve that runs a printing press and prints it out of nowhere, creates money out of nowhere, and then loans it to the government out of nowhere. The problem that we have, it comes down to the Federal Reserve. And who are the 12? Illuminati. They own and control the Federal Reserve. Period.
Stu, correct me if I'm wrong, but the world is in so much debt that there's not enough money in circulation to pay the debt off. Am I correct in that?
It's an artificial debt that has been put on us. We have no,
yes, sir. Yes.
The U.S. government basically has no real debt at all. The Federal Reserve has put us in that, and those leaders inside our government dump that so-called artificial debt on us. What needs to happen is this. I know where $100 trillion of real estate assets are in the United States of America, that these Israelis, Millman and Mizell and Daddy Bush, etc., have buried this money. It's a combination of stolen money from the Treasury, and it's a combination of narcotics trafficking money, which all their assets can be seized. Now, if I know where 100 trillion is, shopping centers and high rises and all the stuff that's been put in, all these dummy corporate names that I followed the money trail for the past 30 years on, and all this bare land they own, and all this mining and all the other that they have, including the Alaskan pipeline that 6 corporations in front of BP get, which is those 6 of the Illuminati boys get their cut of the oil coming out of there. Remember, the Alaskan pipeline was supposed to be run into America to solve the import problem, but it all gets exported out of the country, mainly to Japan and other countries. If we took all their assets from them, we could solve America's problems, and everybody that ever lost any pension fund money, the crap that they did through the junk bond daisy chain, that everybody lost during the savings and loan scandal, all their pension funds, their homes, these 12.5 million that have been stolen from everybody that had a legitimate claim. It's called the clawback. It's like RICO, Racketeering, Influence, and Corruption Organizational Laws. If they took everything they had, that 100 trillion that I'm aware of in real estate, and put it back in the U.S. Treasury, and put it in there where people, Americans only, could buy it, and they gave everybody the right to put a claim in that had been ripped off by these people, a legitimate claim, and they paid it out of the sales of that real estate holdings alone, everybody would have their pockets filled. It would create a whole new economy. We'd go back to 80% of the economy or better would be in the hands of the people. 20% would remain in the government as it quit or continued liquidating. The government would have enough money to divide up between the states, where the states wouldn't have any taxes for 10 years. And the government wouldn't be taxing anybody for 10 years. And Leo Wanta, who was the top secret agent under Ronald Reagan, with the money that he was in control of, that the Bushes hijacked, stole, threw him in a dungeon and other stuff. He's a columnist on Veterans Today in a story. That $30 trillion that's in gold and other things, if he could get that, which the Supreme Court has ruled that he'd be given his money, but the Federal Reserve banks won't give him his money. If that money were to be put back, we wouldn't have any problems in America. Every road in America would be freshly paved. Every highway. We'd have a new rail system in America. And nobody would have taxes or anything.
Exactly right. And if you don't mind, I'd like to shift the conversation a little bit to a current event that seems to be making a stir, which I'm very sure you know a great deal about as well, is this immigration, bringing these, for lack of a better term, illegal aliens into the country. The president says he's going to make an executive order to give work visas basically to these people if Congress doesn't act. What is this just like a media false flag to keep our minds and our eyes off of, you know, maybe the situation in Gaza? Or is this a real, do the American people really need to worry? Is this something that has a bigger story coming behind it?
Stu, are you still with us?
I'm sorry, I had my mic muted. I apologize. Yes, there is a big story to this. Now, I was involved. I talked with Dr. Preston James. He wrote the story because I've been working on about 4 stories, and one of them's deal with cyber terrorism and collecting this 56,000 felonies since February the 28th. And it's the largest case. It will be the largest case of a number of felonies ever in the history of the United States. U.S. intelligence has that information already updated on a weekly basis. But here's the deal. I didn't have time to put this in writing, and Dr. Preston James did. I consulted with him on it. He'd heard the same thing. Here's what the deal is. And you go to veteranstoday.com/author/Jim, as James, Preston James. And you go, because we have several Jims up there, you might take a look. He has one about the border crisis, and I forgot the title, but I'll try to hold on. I'll try to get it for you real fast. I think the title was Border Breach, the Real Story Behind the Headlines. Now, I will drop it to you so you both can review it right here on where we're at in the message box, and you'll be able to see it. Now, here's the story in a nutshell. Daddy Bush, his drug cartels in Central America and Mexico, the Illuminati boys, they decided to pay these drug cartel members $1,000 to $6,000 for each body that they could drag up to the Mexican border, the American-Mexican border, to flood the border. So here they are with signs in Central America and Mexico that says, the United States, Barack Obama is going to give you amnesty, and they'll have free food and free housing and free medical, and they'll help you find a job. Come to America, get in the bus, and we'll drop you off the border. That's what's going on, number one. Why did they do that? Well, the spin doctor is what they tell you on this paid-for, controlled, so-called media, which is nothing but pure propaganda scripts written by Daddy Bush and his boys on a daily basis. They tell you no difference between ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC. There's MSN. There's no difference between the crap that comes out. It's the same friggin' stuff with pretty little faces being talking head Israeli stooges for a fat paycheck, lying to the American people. And many of them know that they're lying. Now, all the stuff you hear about the border crap and all that, and then the Republicans and then the Democrats and all that, that's all just mind comp. Adolf Hitler type mind comp. If you've never read the book, read it. The real truth is, here's the drug dealers being paid by the crime syndicate that controls America, the Israelis and the Bushes. And what did they do? They paid them for a reason. They needed the border flood. Why? Because they have terrorist cells of their Al-Qaeda, their Islam, their Ukrainians, and others, these private mercenaries of Halliburton and the Israelis, and paid for by Saudi Arabia, Daddy's partners. They've been bringing them across the border. Now, someone called me about it. I was busy with my cyber terrorism, and I was busy with other things. Gordon Duff put up a story about, after verifying with Homeland Security, that someone called me and told me that 3 Ukrainians have been arrested on the border, detained by Homeland Security. He contacted them. They got the cell phones, and they found out they were connected to a Seattle cell of terrorism going to happen against America. Now, with that said, there's also been reports by Professor James Fetzer and Dr. Preston James, both, that shows, and this is accurate, that the Israelis planted 25 nukes in America. These were the nukes stolen out, W-54 nukes, warheads, 8 feet long. They were repackaged up, should we say, remanufactured in Israel. They were stolen during Daddy Bush, George H.W. Bush's administration, and in Clinton's administration. And they were put out of Pantech, Amarillo, Texas, where these nukes were stored, taken out of commission and restored back there during the agreement with Russia to lower our nuclear arsenals, and they would lower theirs. They let the Israelis have them. They sold them to them, gave them to them, or whatever they did. They're the missing nukes, and there's 25 of them in America. There were several of them that went off in the buildings on the day of 9/11 that disintegrated the buildings, and they've proven that now in the stories on Veterans Today. They've put up the U.S. intelligence reports, some of them. They've put up classified reports, and others they haven't put up. The evidence is there. The reason for the border is they plan on doing to America what they're doing to Gaza soon. they plan on annihilating 2/3 of Americans. Are we going, because we're all waking up, are we going to allow this garbage to continue? I don't think so. And the first thing that goes off in America is the day you get your gun, you go round up all your public officials and take them to the outhouse and hold trials. That's what's going to have to be done. And
yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, sir.
That's what the border's about. It's to allow terrorists to flood the border where Homeland Security and Customs and the border agents can't keep up with it. And Barack Obama's intentions is to put them back, and he has done it with quite a few of them. They're processing them, saying you become illegal in America. You came across the border illegally. They have the right to a trial. They're putting special judges down there and the whole bit, and they're processing them. They're feeding them and clothing them right now and keeping them in shelters. They're human beings until they can be put back on airplanes, and they have been making load full of people in these airplanes on daily runs back to Central America. But do you hear this from this APEC Zionist is the real word, Illuminati Zionist control the Republican Party?
Absolutely not.
Talking heads for the crime syndicate?
You don't hear it from other side.
No, you don't hear it from either side. The Congress and the Senate are friggin' controlled, and they talk to daddy. John McCain basically runs them. Who does he talk to daily? Bank bailout scamster, Illuminati, one of the 12, Satan's disciples, Larry Mizell, on a daily basis and gets instructions from him. Who controls Bibi Netanyahu? Larry Mizell.
See, that's insane. That people don't wake up and try to understand that, you know, it is evil versus good. It's not country versus country. It's not an ideal versus another ideal. That it is truly the good versus the evil. And like you were saying earlier in this broadcast, that we can delay this. And I believe that's why the Bible doesn't give a time for the end, because the people, like you said, can turn to Christ, can ask for forgiveness, and we can prolong this. Now, in the grand scheme of things, yes, it is written. These things are going to happen. Are we going to sit blindly by and allow these things to happen? God, I hope not.
I won't, but
works, and it can all be turned around if enough people pray. Ask God to take and bring these people to justice now and allow the planet to survive and allow generations behind us and empower those that are empowered to do the right thing. Prayer works.
it does.
And for those who don't know, I say to this, for those who don't believe in God, oh, well, God may be real, or Christ may be real, or whatever. I tell you this, get on your hands and knees and talk to him and ask him for one special favor. Oh, God, I want $1 million. No. Ask him for something, the desires of your heart, something that's a problem. Maybe you have an ill mother and you want her to get healed. Maybe you have a spouse that's suffering from something they need healing. It could be a child. It could be a family member. It could be a friend. Whatever it is, ask him for one favor and say, if you show me you're real by doing this, Lord, I will serve you. If he doesn't, let's start serving him.
And that is the truth, ladies and gentlemen. I have
seen it done.
You're right. I've seen it done firsthand too.
As have I.
Stu, I've probably told you this on several occasions when we've discussed these types of scenarios. My wife had an inoperable brain tumor. She was dying. She was having grand mal seizures. She was going blind. She had actually outlived her date of death. but I prayed. And I always knew about God. I was raised in a Christian household, but I never really followed God's true eternal plan. And God gave me this miracle. He removed this inoperable softball-sized brain tumor from my wife's head, left nothing but the tiniest piece of what they call scar tissue. And I tell you this, my wife gets up. She is probably the strongest person I know. She is a great believer. And because of what Jesus did for me and my wife and my family, I have never been able to turn away from that. And that's why I always speak about the truth. I don't try to make every show about religion, but I promise you, the shows that are about religion come from my heart and they come from the Bible. And Stu is not lying to you, ladies and gentlemen. If you ask in the gracious fulfillment of Christ's law that this will happen for you as well, you can have a miracle in your life. Does God owe us anything? Absolutely not. So does God promise us things for being loyal, for being faithful, for having that faith of a mustard seed? Yes, he does, and he provides. And these things can be turned around. Stu is absolutely right. If everybody in America turned to Christ and said, Lord Jesus, we are unhappy with the leaders. We need our evil doers brought to justice, not just justice here, but your justice, Lord. And these things would turn around, and it would turn around so fast that people would be amazed. There would be indictments. There would be hangings. There would be treason. These things would happen so fast. But guess what? This world has done nothing but turn against God for at least the last 100 years. And nobody stands up and says, hey, you know, this nation was founded on the Ten Commandments, on what God's law is. But do we follow that now? No. We override it. We bypass it. We allow 545 people to dictate everything you do, down to how much you're going to pay for a gallon of gas, all the way up to what kind of ammunition you can own. I mean, it's a travesty.
They're in control. And you're right. And it does come about the power of God. I want to just give you something. I'm not a doctor. I don't practice medicine. But if you go to Hannah's, HANNAS, HERB shop, prayer, God does you a favor. And that was a miracle with your wife. But as a follow-up, Hannah'sHerbShop.com, she cured probably 1.5 million people throughout the world of various cancers and tumors, and they just, it's incredible what herbs they have. And she was an old German doctor that during World War II escaped Germany. She had been a doctor in MD for 2 years. She came to America because we were at war with Germany. They would not allow her to become a doctor here because they told her she had to re-educate. And she says, no, I cure people with herbs. That's what I'm going to do. So she went and bought a farm in Boulder, Colorado, her and her family, and they expanded. They bought more land, and they grow herbs there that are covered with plastic, by the way, folks, because they found out about the chemtrails. So you get good herbs that are not sprayed with chemicals or any of that. And about 90% of the alternative health shops in this country sell Hannah's products. Wormwood, W-O-R-M, wood, W-O-O-D, combination is one of the things they found out. We get parasites which cause cancer, tumor growth in our body. Get your wife on a bottle of wormwood. It's 10 or 12 bucks off the internet. Second, if you got a problem, send a saliva sample, $40, and they tell you what other parasites you have in your body that need to be killed out to stay healthy. And I've seen 50 people cured of cancers. Everything from prostate, uterus, breast cancer, brain tumors, you name it, lung cancer, sent home to die. 60 days later, she was totally cured because they found an extra parasite that wormwood, the 4 things in it, did not kill the 4 parasites. There was a 5th parasite that was in her body, and it was from tobacco that got on tobacco leaves that was in cigarettes, and that parasite got inside of her and ate her up. And she was totally cured, and the doctors could not believe it. So I've seen
God bless
50 people, and she's written about a book called The Cure for All Cancers, the sister book, The Cure for All AIDS, and a third book, The Cure for All Diseases, by Dr. Hulda Clark of Canada, who has been outlawed giving speeches here in the United States because the Bush crime syndicate and the Israelis control the insurance companies, the hospitals, the pharmaceutical companies, and the graveyards, that is, through burial. They have bought up a company out of Houston, owns 99% of all the funeral homes now. It's profit to them. They don't want you cured. They don't want you healthy. They don't want us humans on the planet. They want to kill us and destroy us. So with that said, if you want to get cured of problems and ailments, call Hannah's Herb Shop up. It's Hannah's, H-A-N-N-A-S, Herb, H-E-R-B, shop.com, and send them your saliva sample, $40 within a week. They'll send it back to you. It will be analyzed, and they'll tell you which herbs to get, what you have in you. As an example, we have a mold epidemic in this country. I've written about it. Dr. William Croft, he's a pathologist. The insurance companies don't want you to know about that. They're spraying it out of the chemtrails. You got it in your homes. People spray their bathtubs and their showers and all this area around with bleach because it's easy to do it. Gets rid of the black mold in between the tile, in the cracks, on the grout, and all this other stuff. That doesn't cure the problem. You need to seal it with silicone, clean it down with ammonia. If everybody cleaned their homes with ammonia, it would get rid of the mold in your home. When you clean your carpet, use ammonia. It kills mold in the carpet because even though your carpet dries out and your carpet dries out, after you've cleaned your carpets, you develop mold on your hardwood floors in your carpet. When you pull up a carpet, it's all black, black and moldy and everything else. You're breathing that. You're getting that mold spores in you every day. If you use ammonia when you clean that, it will dry, and the ammonia will ensure the mold's dead. When you tear out a bathroom, you use ammonia, not bleach. Bleach intensifies it and turns it into a 10,000% greater increase of a toxic mold environment, a gas that it puts off, which will kill you. People are dying all over the country from what they call fungi, a form of athlete's foot. They're running around with their eyeballs itching. They're itching in their crotch, along their crotch, on their legs and things of this. They're breaking out on their body with open wounds. It's mold. It's an epidemic. Go to my website, stewebb.com, the middle column. I've written 2 stories. I've left them there intentionally to try to help people with their mold problem because 50% of Americans have mold in their body. And it's part of the Illuminati's plan, spraying it out of these chemtrails, mold, toxic mold, to kill us all. It's the evil.
You're absolutely right, Stu. And
get the wormwood
like
combination for your wife. Just as a backup to get rid of the worms, she's gotten rid of it because of a miracle from God, the tumor. But get her the wormwood because it will get rid of the parasites, okay?
Yes. I will.
If you can afford to fill $40, get her saliva up there. Call them. They'll tell you where to mail the $40, and don't even tell them what's the matter with her, and they'll tell you what the problem is. Okay.
That is.
My father had prostate cancer. We did a saliva sample, sent it up to him. Guess what they said? You have prostate cancer. He was cured with Prostat and wormwood. They sell both.
That is awesome. I mean, 100%, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you go back. This show is going to be so jam-packed full of information. And like you were saying, Stu, exactly right. There's no money in the cure. Cancer last year alone, just cancer now, $317 billion industry.
It's all money.
We're talking about $100,000 chemo a pop, $100,000 a pop for chemo for them to pump radiation into you and kill you faster than the cancer.
Yep. Now let's move beyond that. We've kind of touched on this, and I understand where you want to be. What do we got? 10 minutes left of the show.
Yes.
Okay.
Would there be any possibility of doing a follow-up in the future?
I'll do a show with you again, Dylan. Yes. But
Okay.
here's what I suggest, and I even put your show I've got the link. I'll put it up on my website tonight. It'll drive a lot of traffic to your show. Now, I would bring you on my show, but the only people I'm bringing on there are authors of Veterans Today or whistleblowers or those that are in the stories in particular. Like we put on last week, Professor James Fetzer brought on a state highway patrolman over Sandy Hook because of the evidence that he has accumulated, the known dead bodies and so forth. But here's the deal. What I'd like to spend the time on the next roughly 9 minutes. The American people, either they're idiots or they're stupid. And I'm not insulting your audience. Now listen to me very carefully. Many people are awake out here, and that's the word that's being passed around because they think that they've come awake that we have a problem. But so many people are worn out by the time they get off work of every day. They want to go home, and they want to sit down with the family and have dinner, and then they go sit in front of the TV because it keeps them entertained. They need to shut the TV off. They need to quit referring to the TV as the news. I'm going to turn the news on. There's no news. It's propaganda. Ignore it. Come to Veterans Today and read about it. We're breaking stuff that nobody has ever seen. For the past 3 to 4 months, it has been powerful. It's been powerful for 2 years. We're #1 now in the charts. We beat out CNN, ABC, Fox, any of them in ratings. We're way above them. We're going like leaps and bounds, especially now since everything is being dumped on us, all the files of everything you can believe. I put a top secret satellite photo up the other day. I can't tell you where I got it. Top secret.
We never asked that.
Showed that airplane. It showed the trail of 30 miles of airplane, which if it was a BUK missile, it would immediately exploded in the air. It was the tail section had to have been blown off or a gaping hole in it. And when the bodies fell out and it's in there, they froze instantly, turned blue, their skin began peeling off of them, and they began rotting like they were dead bodies. That explains bodies scattered for 30 miles. That photo is a 30-mile long photo. Okay? Things of this nature. Russian intelligence, French intelligence, U.S. intelligence has dumped on Gordon Duff. He has done about 15 stories about the 911 and nukes going off, not some thermal mite sniffers and energy weapons like all these stooges out here claim that have sold books and all made money and they want to push their books and all this other garbage. None of it's true. Nukes went off. That's an example. With reports you can see it's coming out of intelligence around the world. It is based on these missing stolen nukes that Daddy Bush and Clinton both have committed treason, sedition, and allowed the Israelis, their partners, to have them. Here's what we need to do. Go to Facebook.com. Go to Veterans Today Truth Warriors. Facebook.com, Veterans Today Truth Warriors, if you're a Facebook member, and every day share those links. We have 2 Truth Warriors that are putting all the links up in the paragraph. All you got to do is share them and push the like button, or come to Veterans Today and grab your favorite one, your story off, and spread it. Not only there, take it to Twitter, take it to Dig, take it to all these other social, Google, all these other social medias out here, and put it up daily. Spend 20 to 30 minutes helping the country out, where people see this. It's growing like leaps and bounds. There's not disinformation up there. My radio show is scaring the hell out of it on Wednesdays. I'm pushing 30 million in ranking. That's huge. 95 AM FM stations. I was allowed that show by John Stokes. Stokes is rated one of the 100 top radio show hosts in the world. He's in that ranking. He let me have his Wednesday show. He'll let me have any other days I want. I don't want it. 2 shows a week is enough of the broadcasts we need to do. But we need people to spread the word. We need to stop people from watching TV somehow and listen to this propaganda, because this is the fear factor and the mind control that people are under. Instead of turning on that TV, go make love with your wife. Instead of turning on that TV, go out and talk to somebody. Instead of turning on that TV, take your dog for a walk. Spend time with yourself and your family and your friends, and turn the friggin' TV off. Come every day. Come every day to Veterans Day and read what's going on. We're running right down the road and stopping the propaganda. We're stopping it because the truth is coming out on everything that they do, and every time they move. It's right there on Veterans Today now. And I'm telling people this: get a gun and get ammo, get some food and water, and you don't have to buy rations. I sure wouldn't want to eat them. Go buy canned goods.
Thank you.
Yeah. Get a couple good can openers. Get yourself some firewood stored up. Get yourself a fire pit in your backyard. Go dig a hole. Dig it about a couple feet deep, and dig it maybe 3 feet in diameter. Surround it by some gravel or some rock. Make it part of your landscaping. Get yourself some firewood in case it hits. We are expecting here in America a terrorist attack by these Israelis that control America, and by the Bush crime syndicate. There's 25 nukes in America. They think that they're going to hit biological, chemical weapons on us as well. If that happens, they're going to, Homeland Security, not military, will do martial law. And if they do, they're trained by the Israelis. They were built by the Israelis. That's what Homeland Security is about. And there's an article up there by Dr. Preston James, and he's 100% accurate in what he has written. Go punch in Dr. Preston James, Homeland Security. Remember, his link is, there's the link I gave to all of you, but I mean the two of you, but it's veteranstoday.com/author/Jim, and read a story about Homeland Security and why it was created. Now, become a truth warrior. Take the links from Veterans Today, like that Homeland Security article, send it to your state congressman, your state senator, your local sheriff, your local police departments. Send that article to them to wake them up. We are all Americans. We have good people. It doesn't mean every cop on the street's dirty, because they're not. Most of them are good Americans thinking they're doing the right thing. Many of the police chiefs are okay. A lot of them have been compromised. A lot of the sheriffs have been compromised by the crime syndicates. A lot of them are halfway decent people. They're Americans like you and I. But they have been programmed through this Homeland Security garbage that we're all terrorists on the streets, and to treat us that way. Send it to your council members, your mayors. Wake up everybody on a local basis. When they see that, they're going to be going, oh my God, they're putting the truth out. So-and-so told me about this or that. Because people inside the government can't come to many of these websites, especially the federal government. They're told not to. So spread the truth. Yes, sir.
You are a scholar and a gentleman, and you never disappoint in any interview I've ever done with you. You have always given us exactly what we need to hear, whether it hurts people's feelings or it arouses or piques their interest to go and dig. But you are always a consummate professional, sir. And I say, sir, like I know Stu, but I say it with the highest respect a man can give another man.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you for giving me a great show.
Helen, I appreciate it for inviting me on, and I'll put your interview on my site as well. That'll drive you some heavy traffic to your YouTube channel there.
Thank you. Thanks for a great show.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you both for inviting me.
Absolutely, brother.
Always.
You keep fighting, you keep fighting.
I always will.
I'll be in contact with you soon, Stu.
Okay, sounds good. Both of you have a good one.
You too.
You too.
This has been The Truth Speaks. Come check us out or subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will be on a new network, Shake and Wake, this Friday. Wow, is it really this Friday? Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard, and Saturdays at a time that has not been decided yet. For now, this is The Truth Speaks, signing out.